All right. Well, I am lucky enough to begin this episode joined with my colleague, Erica Stark. Erica, say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Thanks, Nailed Adam. It.
Be here.
Loved it. I wanted to talk to you because you and I were having a little discussion like a few days ago about how you're maybe not so good at vacation. Can you tell us a little bit about how you're not so good at vacation?
Sure. Side note, weird conversation to have with my boss who decides when I get to take vacation.
I have never declined a vacation, have I?
You have not. And I was just going to say, the problem is not you. The problem is what I do on my vacations, which is not relax. So in terms of taking vacations, at Adverb, like we have a really wonderful vacation plan allotment, if you will. But one of the things, even when everything is running swimmingly, that the biggest barrier, I guess, for me when it comes to taking vacation is the guilt. We have a really close team. We're all working hard. And there's certainly times of the year where things are a little bit more kind of hectic than usual. And the team has a lot on their plates. And my first kind of, I guess, like instinct or gut reaction when I start thinking about time off or time off that maybe I've booked, far in advance is approaching is, what right do I have to rest when the rest of my team is like pedal to the metal, getting stuff done for our clients? And that's really challenging to get over, even though I know that it's a really important part of all of our lives.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what your thought process is when you imagine those things, because as you mentioned, we work together, and at Adverb we have a pretty permissive culture and this idea of getting as much rest as possible. So when you're booking a vacation, are you going to slide the mouse to click submit for your vacation request and feeling like I shouldn't be doing this?
It's funny. It's not so much like the when I'm booking it, because it's usually far enough in advance that I'm like, that's a future Erica problem. She can feel guilty about it. Right now, I can convince myself that it's okay, but it's when, it's the weeks leading up to a vacation where maybe we had some new business come in, or we've had a team member that was out sick and the workload is maybe a little bit higher than I might have expected. That's when I start to go, oh, well, is this good timing? And it's not so much, I would say it's half like the guilt kind of driven from me of oh my God, how is this going to affect the team and what have you? And also, even though as far as I'm aware, nobody's saying these things behind my back when I'm on vacation, but there's also this concern of what is the rest of the team going to think when they're working really hard and I'm off doing whatever it is I'm doing on vacation? That's really challenging to navigate, I think.
Well, the bad news is they all say very mean things about you when you're away, like how dare she? But okay, so that's one problem, but you do still take vacations. What's it like on vacation? Are you going away and laying on a beach and reading a book, or do you find rest when you are on vacation?
Okay, there's two things that come to mind. Number one is, Adam, the first thing that I do when I sign off for the last day I have at work before vacation, the first thing that I do is I clean my house, my whole house. If that doesn't tell you how I do on vacation, I'm not sure what the rest of this conversation is going to do. But a friend of mine gave me this phrase that I absolutely love and hate, and he calls it the project demon. Oh. And when I go on vacation, the project demon comes out of whatever lair he's been hiding in, and he says, there are so many things you could be doing with all of this time. Let's do all of them at once. So work brain turns off. Everything else that I maybe would have liked to do but haven't had enough time, between work and my regular kind of activities while I'm working full time, all of those things come to the forefront of my mind. And I'm like, I must do all of them. and then I can relax. Problem is, I live on an acreage. I have 2 horses and a dog. That's enough things to keep me busy for the rest of my life. So if I'm going I'm going to do all the projects that the project demon is telling me I need to do before I can rest. The rest never happens. And guess what? The rest isn't happening.
Yeah. So, okay, fair enough. I mean, you have chosen a lifestyle that means you have a lot of responsibility, and you can't just walk away from it. So I guess my last question for you, Erica, is could you use a little bit of advice on how to properly vacate?
I would love nothing more than some advice on how to properly vacate. The thing that's been working me so far is to quite literally vacate my house, go somewhere else, and try really hard to not start home improvement projects at my friends' places. So any other tips y'all have for vacation would be wonderfully appreciated.
Okay, well, we're going to find out in this episode of Rest for the Wicked. Rest for the Wicked is produced in Calgary, Alberta on Treaty 7 territory, the traditional lands of the Blackfoot Confederacy comprising the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and the Stoney Nakoda, including Chiniki, Bears Paw, and Good Stoney First Nations, and the home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Districts 5 and 6. We make this acknowledgement as a small gesture of reconciliation with the Indigenous peoples who have lived on these lands for centuries.
Hi, my name is Dr. Lisa Bélanger, and I need a vacation.
And I'm Adam Rozenhart, and I also need a vacation, but I'm very bad at it. This is, of course, Rest for the Wicked, a podcast where we talk about the ways in which we are trying to get better at finding ways to rest. And we're very excited to have Jenica Day joining us today to talk about vacations. Jenica, I'm going to throw to you to maybe just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what it is that you do.
So I am an author of a book called You Need a Better Vacation. The book really came about from me personally not being very good at vacations, which is interesting and weird because I think a lot of people don't like to admit that they're bad at vacationing. I actually didn't know that I was a bad vacationer until I started looking at all the research, and I was like, I haven't really been doing this very well. So I ended up writing a book on the science of vacationing, hoping that I could help myself vacation better, but also help other people vacation better. So I'm an author. I also am a speaker as well. And then I also have 3 very young children, 6, 4, and 2. So I'm a mom in my time off.
So I want to start because you said the science of vacation. What is happening in the brain and in the body when we take a vacation?
Yeah. So according to the effort recovery model, when we are not working, our natural resting state is one of low stress. When we work, we experience short-term stress. And so that shows up psychologically. So we feel tired, we're maybe less productive, we're in a bad mood, we're irritable. And it also shows up physiologically. So our stress hormones increase. So when we take vacations, we remove that work stress and we actually go back to kind of this resting state baseline where we're not in really this stress mode.
All right. But clearly some of us are doing this incorrectly, because there are occasions where I will come back from a vacation and not feel as though I got any rest at all. Or like you start your work day and you're like, oh, okay, well, that just deleted everything that just happened over the last couple of weeks. So why do some of us come back from vacation more exhausted than when we left?
Yeah, that happens more often than people would like. We always hear that common phrase, I need a vacation from my vacation. And it's because we're just not doing them correctly. We have too many distractions, for one. Detachment. So, and I can go into all the different things that you need to build a good vacation, but detachment is one of the most highly correlated restorative activities that we can do on vacation. And so this means detaching from devices, detaching from work, our professional lives, but also detaching from things like life work, which is all the things that we do behind the scenes that carry a mental load, childcare, errands, all those things. So detachment is one of the things that I feel like people have the most trouble with. And when we aren't able to detach on vacation, we feel this, like we have this stress kind of running in the background, and we can never actually feel rested when we come back. Now, that's just one thing. There's like a ton of other things that we need to do on vacation. We can probably talk about that as well. But the basic thing here is that we're not vacationing correctly. And when I say correctly, I mean, we're not vacationing in line with what science is reporting.
Do you know what? It's funny. I'm jumping in here, but I think it's so important. You introduce yourself as a mom of 3 small kids. There is no detachment. Like, so what I'm hearing from you is if you are a parent, there's no vacation.
Okay, so the interesting thing is I was before I had kids, I was working this 9 to 5. I was in, the business, the grind. You do your 9 to 5, go on vacation every couple of weeks or every once in a while, etc. And I had come from kind of this burnout before I started this 9 to 5. I was a teacher and I wasn't vacationing properly. I burned out. I go to this 9 to 5, start this business life. I start researching vacations, looking at the science, seeing what things say. And in that 9 to 5, I figured out kind of this formula for vacationing, what we should do while we're on vacation, how often we should vacation, how long we should vacation. I had it all figured out. Okay. So I was in this 9 to 5, figured it out. Great. Wrote the book. And while I was writing the book, I had children. So during that time, I was like, wait a minute, I don't know how this is going to apply anymore. I had to totally transform the way that I thought about vacations, because you're right. When you have children, it's not like I can do whatever I want with my time. I can relax. I can detach from all my life work. It's not like that. You have to find other ways to vacation. And so I can talk about those ways as a mom that I vacation, but what I really do is I take really short, more frequent time for myself. So I can't take a 7-day vacation in Cancun by myself anymore, but I can take a 3-hour chunk on the weekend, every weekend, and like fully detach from my kids and fully detach from like all the work that I'm doing. Or I can take little pockets of time while I'm on vacation with them, where like me and my husband will trade off. Maybe the grandparents come and I can get some time there. But yeah, when you have children, it's a whole different ballgame to vacation.
So how long does it take to like switch off? So if you think about the model you described, what is the length of time, or how quickly or effectively can we get there? Because I love this idea of microdosing vacations throughout your life. And we should have more frequent respite in that way. But how long does it take to switch off?
Yeah. So what we generally see is that there's 3 kind of phases to a vacation in terms of how our well-being fluctuates. So the first 10% of a vacation, regardless of vacation length, except for if it's a very short vacation, that might be a little bit different. But in general, the first 10% of a vacation is kind of where we're like getting rid of this stress. We're kind of overcoming the work life, all the things that we have to do at home. And we're kind of slowly seeing our well-being increase. After that, the next 10 to 80% of our vacation, we see a really steep spike in happiness and health and well-being. And then we hit kind of our like happiness maximum during usually between like 40 and 70% of vacation. So I would say the first 10% is really where we're overcoming that stress. And then the next part, we're kind of seeing like a bigger change.
And is there, like, knowing that you need 10% of your vacation time to kind of switch off, is there an optimal length of vacation for mental recovery? And this is an important question because people can take this information back to their employer and be like, actually need more vacation. So I'm very curious to know what the answer to this is.
Yeah. So it's funny, and you don't even have to include this in the podcast if you don't want to. This is just really interesting information for people who are like into the research. There was this study that came out a while ago, And the headlines ran with it. And they said, the optimal vacation is 8 days. It was all over. It was like, everyone should take an 8-day vacation. Everyone should vacation for 8 days. And so I looked at this study and I was like, I don't know if that's actually true. And so I looked at it, and what they found is that people were hitting their happiness maximum at 8 days, but they actually had ran, like, the average vacation in that study was 16 days. And they only took health and wellness indicators or markers on day 0, 4, 8, and 16. So they basically just said you should go for an 8-day vacation because that's when you're going to be happiest. But they actually didn't have enough data points to connect the dots. So when you look at other research that's been done, they find this kind of, a percentage of your vacation, and 40 to 70% of the way through your vacation, you're the happiest, regardless of how long you go. So you could go for 4 days and you're going to kind of hit that happiness maximum in that time. So with this information, we actually don't know exactly how long you should vacation for. But in my opinion, and what I found in a lot of the research, is that it's like sports. It's like muscle recovery. Okay. So if you are a marathon and you run a 40K race, or you run a 10K race, if you run 40K, you're going to have to rest for a lot longer than if you're running a 10K race. And that's just because your muscles need more time to recover. So if you are in a high stress job and you have a really high mental load, or you react a lot more to stress than other people. My husband does not react to stress as much as I do. He's very like no fight or flight response. I'm like, oh my God, where are we going? Like, I react to stress a lot more than he does. And so I need more time to rest and recover than he does. So in terms of how long a vacation should be, it really depends on your stress level and the amount of stress you're experiencing at work. So high stress jobs really should have more time off, and lower stress jobs you can probably go a longer amount of time without taking a vacation, and you can vacation probably for a couple days, maybe 3 or 4 days instead of 10, less frequently if you're less stressed.
I have a question about this because multiple things based on what you talked about parenting, like my understanding of, and like some of the conversations I had with researchers around optimal length is actually really around more frequent, shorter vacations. So really highlighting that you do have this weird detachment like period of time, and that the recovery is needed more frequently. So instead of taking that big 3-week vacation during the year, you're taking more frequent, smaller vacations, allowing yourself to get into that recovery mode. Have you seen any research on this, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so there was a study by Judith Slucher, and she did a meta-analysis of recovery. And what she found was that it takes at least 3 hours for us to recover from work stress. So when I had my first child, I'd been told by people, take an hour here and there, go to a yoga class, get your mom to watch the kids while you're doing your rest and recovery. And I found that really wasn't working. And so I lengthened it. And I found that when I went from like 3 or 4 hours of actually detaching from, childcare and work and all those things, that was working a lot better for me. And then what I did is I implemented that every Saturday. I would take this kind of like micro vacation, which I call it. And my husband would get his on Sunday, and we swapped off. But every weekend, because I was doing this more frequently, short, frequent ones, I found that I could kind of sustain myself and not feel burned out because I was getting them more frequently, even though they were shorter. So that was what worked for me. And I find that it's really beneficial.
It seems so much more attainable too. And then just like as a side note, and I think this is important, like we can actually vacation for many reasons. And we're specifically talking about the respite or rest that we get for it. Like we can vacation to see a different place or to see family, like with different intent. So I'm so excited to get into what's needed for that ideal vacation. But first I have to talk about what can we do about that guilt we feel, or some of us feel, when we go on vacation?
I mean, honestly, it starts with the culture of the workplace that you're in. If you're a CEO, I don't want to name anyone, Elon Musk. But if your CEO is telling you to grind or you're going to lose your job, that is going to trickle down to every employee in the workplace, and it's not going to be a healthy place to take vacations. And when there's no healthy place to take vacations, people burn out, people get tired, people don't work more productively, people aren't creative, all of those things fail. So it starts with the workplace. It starts with the CEOs, it starts with the VPs, the directors, down to the managers. Research shows if you have a manager who doesn't vacation very often, you also will not vacation very often. So I don't want to put the onus on the individual. It's, yes, there are things that we can do ourselves and we should be doing them. But there's also this guilt that we feel if our manager doesn't take vacations and we take vacations. It's like anyone's going to feel guilty taking a vacation if your manager only takes one a year and it's for 5 days. So it really is this organizational culture that needs to change.
That's really interesting. And I guess it makes me feel good because at my company, we encourage vacations. We talk about, like, yes, you have to get your work done. It can be quite high stress, but there's this culture we're trying to cultivate of radical rest, because we work in a creative industry. You can't be creative if you're exhausted, and your creativity actually gets fueled by like your brain not focusing on something. Like this is probably too much information, but I can't tell you how many times I've come up with an idea or an answer to a challenge while in the shower, not thinking about it. And so it's interesting that you would say, you know, the culture is a big impact. If we're in a culture that's good when it comes to taking breaks, I wonder, like, I mean, obviously I'm a planner. Lisa's a planner because she's type A. Oh, wait, Lisa, that's not the phrase you use. What is the phrase you use?
I'm a type AAA.
Type triple.
I'm a control enthusiast.
That's the phrase. Yes, exactly. But if we're working in a great culture and we can plan our vacations in advance, I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about what anticipation of a vacation does for us, because I am never more bummed out than when I can't see something exciting on the horizon. So how does that help? How does that help us feel good about ourselves and our lives?
I love anticipation. I think it's so important. The research shows that we get the biggest boost 8 weeks leading up to the vacation. So if you don't plan a vacation, if you plan a vacation 2 weeks before you go, you are missing out on this boost in health and well-being that is like, it for me, I'm like, why are doctors not prescribing this? Like, why do they not say, like, just put a vacation on your calendar? It is honestly the easiest thing you can do to feel better. Like, just book a vacation that is 8 weeks or 10 weeks or 16 weeks away from now. It doesn't even have to be anything. Like, it doesn't even have to be, you know, a Mexican all-inclusive or whatever. It could just be, I am taking these 5 days off in 8 weeks from now, and I'm going to do this one really exciting thing, and that exciting thing could just be, I'm going to read a book. I'm going to finish an entire book this weekend. It is the easiest thing we can do, and people are not doing it. So missing out on those benefits is huge.
So you're saying that even if I don't know what I'm doing, if I have 5 days off booked 10 weeks from now, I am going to be a better person?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And if, like, I come from a sports background, I played all different sports. I was a varsity athlete. I studied physiology, kinesiology in university. And when I look at sports and my own personal experience with sports, you know, there's always a halftime. There's always an end of a quarter. There's always this break that we have to look forward to, not because we want to stop playing, but because we know we can push ourselves really hard until that break comes. And so in work, if we don't have any vacations planned, I mean, the weekends are arguably, you know, time off, but we don't really like think about them that way. Mm-hmm. If we can have these breaks scheduled, I love having all my breaks scheduled for the entire year, because I wake up every morning, and if my kids are losing their minds and I'm losing my minds, I can say, you know what, I can get through this. I have a break in X amount of days, and I get to rest and recover. And just knowing that in the back of my head gives me that strength to keep going. And it's like a soccer player, right? It's like, oh my God, I'm so tired at 40 minutes into the first half, but I know in 5 minutes, I'm going to have time to get water and recover and stretch a little bit before I have to get back out there. I'm going to give it my all for these last 5 minutes because I can, and I know I have a break coming.
That's so interesting because it makes me think of like my first office job where I was not used to being in an office after having been a student for so long. I was like, gosh, I can't wait for my next coffee break. So yeah, I guess that anticipation is really important. And I'm just glad that I have a vacation in my calendar coming up soon.
I clearly need to do this.
Yes.
Like, this is something that I was planning to do work on. We're going to visit my parents in Nova Scotia next week, and I was anticipating working. Now I want to anticipate not working if I have that flexibility.
Yeah.
Clearly, I didn't do it enough in advance, but
yeah, I mean, you can see it on people's faces too. Like when, you go to like after school pickup or whatever, and you're chatting with somebody and they're like, oh, I'm going here. And the next little bit, they are like glowing. They're like, I have this brain, like people are glowing when they have something to talk about. And I know it probably makes them glow a little bit more if it's something really exciting for them, like if they're like, oh, I have a trip planned to Japan and that's my vacation, and I've been wanting to go there for years and years and years. I think that gives them that little extra boost. But just knowing you have something on the calendar, and I always say we can talk about this later too, but I always say plan a peak and an end experience, and don't worry about anything else in between, because I think we can often get caught up in over planning. We plan every single detail and then our vacation starts to feel like work. But if you just have a peak experience, something that's going to be really exciting for you and something that you end the vacation on a good note, looking forward to that, you have something exciting to look forward to, even if it's a vacation at home. If you have one thing that's really exciting and something at the end that's going to be great, then that helps get that excitement and that anticipation going as well.
I love that. And I love the idea that for somebody, a planner such as myself, to have the space between. Sometimes I feel like the magic and the excitement and the fun happens, the space between, to not have that over planned. What makes a vacation restorative versus just a change of scenery?
So there's 3 things that come up in the literature over and over and over again. So relaxing is one.
I don't understand. What is this relaxing you speak of?
For a type AAA, you might not be able to understand, but reducing tension and anxiety in your body. Detaching. So I mentioned earlier, we need to detach in 3 ways. Detach from work. We need to detach from life work, putting together IKEA furniture, washing the dishes, taking care of children, all of those things. And we need to detach from smartphones and devices, because those little pings can hit up our stress hormones. So detaching in 3 ways. We also need to think about detaching in a physical sense. So actually closing your computer, not checking emails, not being in the office, but also in a non-physical sense where we're not actually thinking, well, not non-physical, a mental sense, we're not thinking about work as well. So if we might not have our computer open, but if we are thinking about, okay, I'm going to draft this email to my boss and this is what it's going to look like and this is how I'm going to do it, that's also mental work, and that causes stress as well. So we need to detach from that as well. So we have relax, we have detach, and then we also have control. So for most of us in our work life, we spend 40 hours plus a week doing something that other people tell us to do. And even if you work for yourself, sometimes there's things that you're doing that you don't actually want to do. So 40 hours a week, we do things that other people want us to do. On our vacations, we need to make sure that we are planning things that we actually want to do and that make us feel restored and recovered. Sounds easy, but if you vacation with other people, children or a husband, sometimes this can get really blurry and you might end up doing a lot of things that aren't on your list of things you want to do, and you do other things. So relax, detach, and control. Those are the 3 main things that we should be focusing on when we're on vacation.
Okay, what then? We know what we need to do. what are the most common vacation mistakes that people make?
Okay, so one I already touched on. I would say over planning. We don't want to feel like we're working when we're on vacation. So plan a peak and an end experience, which I already described. Peak is something that gets you really excited, could be in the middle of your vacation. And then an end experience is something at the very end of your vacation, and you kind of leave on this high note and you're really happy as you're leaving. So over planning is one. I would also say not vacationing frequently enough. A lot of people save their vacation days. They might take a 3-week vacation somewhere, and then they don't get to vacation again for an entire year. So vacationing more frequently and having shorter vacations is a big one. And that's because, like we talked about, anticipation is where we see a boost in our health and wellness. And so if we have multiple frequent vacations throughout the year, we have this anticipation happening over and over and over again. And so our health and wellness is continuously boosted.
I really want to hit on this question for 1000% selfish reasons. How do families with children plan vacations? I have friends that talk about it's a trip if you have children with you. It's a vacation if you don't have children with you. And it's just like highlighting how challenging it is to detach when you have these little people that you're responsible for.
Yeah. I like to call them adventures. We have adventures when I'm vacationing with my kids. And then a real vacation is when mommy gets to spend some time doing what she wants to do. Okay, so plan a trip that's going to be restful for you. I know this isn't always easy, but try to do something that you and your kids will both enjoy and you will feel good about. We've done a lot more all-inclusives. We've done a cruise. And that's because when I don't have to cook or clean, that's like some of the childcare duties and my life work that I don't have to deal with. And then I also have this mental load with my children all the time where like we wake up and it's like, okay, what are we going to do? I have to plan something. I have to find something to do. And so when we're at all-inclusives or on a cruise, I don't have to plan anything. There's activities all over the place. So it takes away some of that mental load and the life work that I have. If you're doing something that's very kid focused, like Disneyland, for example, I would say maybe take a day off before you go and spend 8 hours having a little like micro vacation for yourself. Or the day you get back, take that day off and maybe the kids are in school or there's daycare and you have that day all to yourself and you can kind of rest on your own after the adventure. Another thing that I really like to do is increase the parent-child ratio. So I have 3 kids. And so the parent-child ratio for us is generally 2 to 3. When we go on vacation, we like to increase that ratio. So we go with people who don't have kids or my parents or, aunts and uncles that can help out. And once you increase that parent-child ratio, then you have more hands on the children. And then another thing that I mentioned earlier too is that me and my husband will also trade off. So say we do go on a vacation together, maybe he'll give me 3 hours where I can just sit and read a book while he takes the kids to the beach, or he'll go do something while I take care of the kids as well. So you can get these little pockets of vacation inside of your adventure.
I love that. I don't have kids, so anything that I do to mess up my vacation is on me. And quite often, because I own a business with a partner, I don't always feel like I can fully detach, even though I know that I should. And I should say, even though my team encourages me to. So, Jenica, you've talked a couple of times in this conversation about digital detox, and I want to maybe dig into that a little bit more. Like, to you, what does that really mean? And does disconnecting from work email actually matter?
Yeah, 100%. And I would say what I've seen in the research is most scientists in this area say that this is the number one thing you should be doing on vacation. It is the most strongly correlated vacation activity to your health and well-being.
Wow.
So yes, it is, I would say, and I'm quoting a researcher here, but it's the crux of a vacation. And so if we're not doing that, if we're not detaching, we're really missing out on those benefits. And I know that people think, oh, I'm just going to check email really quickly here. I'm just going to do this here. I'm just going to, thinking about work, all these things. But those little pieces of staying connected can add up and just add to this like underlying stress that you have. So it is very, very, very important. Now, I also want to touch on what you said earlier. You own your own business. You probably work a lot. You probably have, the emails and everything running in the background. You probably feel like you have to reply to them right away. There are jobs where we have to be connected. I totally get that. What I recommend for this is tiny pockets of detachment. Okay. If you can't go away for 7 days and fully detach from your email and your phone, set up boundaries or say, okay, I'm going to do 3 hours each day where I'm fully detached from my email and my phone, and make those 3 days really meaningful and really like in the moment, right? Where you're not using technology. I totally get it. As a mom, you have to be detached, you have to be attached in some capacity. And as a business owner, CEO, different jobs, you do have to be kind of like on call these days. I used to work in e-commerce. And so if the website shut down, you can't just ignore it for 7 days, right? Like you have to, you have to get that up and running. So small pockets where you can fully detach and have these pockets kind of frequently. So you can set up parameters for that. You can also batch notifications on your phone, set boundaries. Like I'll use my phone only from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. every day. There's different ways you can do it. It's really not just like putting your phone in the lockbox in the hotel and forgetting about it for 7 days. You can do smaller steps if you do need to be kind of attached.
That's incredible. One of the things that I've started doing is setting like a mode on my phone where notifications from like work chats and emails will be silenced. And I found that really helpful. But there is like a bit of, it's almost like FOMO. I know I sound like a masochist, honestly, but I have found that really helps for me. And for me, actually, the next big test is I'm taking a week off in the next 2 weeks, and I'm not going anywhere. So I'm going to do some things around the house. I'm going to visit with a couple of friends, but I know the temptation is going to be there to check in. So for me, that's going to be the real litmus test. So I will let you know how that goes.
Yes. Yeah. Home vacations are tricky. Like you don't have to go anywhere to vacation, right? If we really think about it from a rest and recovery perspective, a vacation is just taking time to rest and, get rid of some of the stress that you have from working. So we don't have to go anywhere, but there is this bit of like, when you're at home, your computer's there, your phone's there. I mean, well, your phone's probably going to be anywhere you are, but your computer's there, your office might be there, the laundry's there, the dishes are there, all those things. So, I mean, try to stay out of the house as much as you can, do a lot of stuff outside. Being in nature is great for your health and well-being anyways. But try and stay out of the house, put things away that you don't want to tempt you, like if your computer's in the living room, put it somewhere else, or, close your office door and just say you're not going to go in there for the whole vacation. But yeah, it is tricky when you're at home. And I do understand why people want to go away. Just like physically moving somewhere else gets you away from the stress. My office right now is like a complete disaster. It's like where everything goes. And so when I'm home and I see it, I'm like, I need to clean that. And so if you're not at home, you don't have those thoughts. So it is tricky, but there are things that you can do.
I will give some of that a try for sure.
So how frequently should we take vacations? What is this optimal amount of time?
Okay, so in my book, I talk about this. I've labeled it the vacation hero method. Now, this is what I came up with when I was working in my 9-to-5 and I was going through all the research, and it was based off the research. So what I recommend is taking a vacation approximately 5 times a year. And the reason for that is because we get this boost in health and wellness for 8 weeks before vacation, sometimes longer, but we'll say 8 weeks minimum. And so having that vacation planned, we feel happier and healthier during that time, anticipating our vacation. We get those 8 weeks. Then when we're on vacation, we get this big boost in health and wellness during the vacation because we're on vacation, we're relaxing, we're having a good time, hopefully. And then after vacation, we usually see the benefits of our vacation fade out in approximately 2 weeks. It could be longer. Sometimes it's even shorter if you come back to a lot of stress, but we generally see the benefits of well-being fade out in 2 weeks. So if you understand math correctly, we get 8 weeks before our vacation, and then we get 2 weeks after. And if you add all of this up throughout the year, we can have 5 vacations in the year if we continuously cycle through the anticipation, the vacationing experience, and then the reminiscing of our vacation. So we have 8 weeks, take a vacation, 2 weeks of reminiscing, and then we have 8 weeks again, vacation, 2 weeks of reminiscing, 8 weeks again, and we continuously cycle through. And the reason we cycle through is because then we will have our health and wellness boosted above baseline the entire year. So we never feel a dip in our health and well-being if we continuously have these vacations spaced approximately 10 weeks apart.
That's a good note. Now I'm going to plan my next vacation after that. So we're in a good spot. Now, we've talked a lot about what to do on vacation, the anticipation. I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about how you suggest that we come back to work after a vacation without losing all the benefits of having been on vacation.
Yeah. So re-entry is actually, I would say, one of the most underrated parts of a vacation. Because like I said, we generally get about 2 weeks where our health and wellness is boosted above baseline, but it could be shorter. We could lose all the benefits of a vacation the day we go back to work, or we could have benefits continue on for 4, 6, 8 weeks after vacation. So coming back to work actually will tell us when we lose those kind of vacation benefits. So what I suggest is a couple things here. Block some time in your calendar when you come back to work. So don't come back. Well, first of all, don't come back to a highly stressful work period. Like if you're an accountant and you're leaving during tax season and then you're coming back and you have to finish everything in like a week, it's not a good time to take a vacation. So try and plan your vacations during non-stressful times. Usually after really stressful times, but during and after should be non-stressful times so that you're not coming back to a lot of stress. So block some time in your calendar when you get back, have like a 3-hour block when you come back to work, and you can check emails. You can kind of like chat to people. Did I miss anything? I mean, depending on your job, so that you have some alone time to kind of focus and get back into the groove of everything. I also recommend returning to work midweek. I always suggest leaving for vacation midweek and returning to vacation midweek. Now, this is kind of counterintuitive because a lot of people usually start their vacation on a Friday when it's like the weekend, and then they'll take the whole week off the next week, and then they get another weekend. So you're like sandwiched between 2 weekends, and then you feel like you get more time off. I used to do that all the time. But what some of the research says is that if we leave and come back midweek, we're actually happier. And that's because if we come back midweek, we only have a couple of days of work before the weekend, before our next break. And so when we return on a Monday, we get like those Monday blues. We're like, oh, this sucks. Like I'm back at work, my vacation's over. When we return on a Wednesday or Thursday, we're like, I'm back, but I only have a couple days, and then I get my weekend, and then, I kind of swing back in. So try and return midweek so you're not coming back to the Monday blues. And then also just plan something small and relaxing for when you get back. So like plan to like go for coffee and chat with a friend and like talk about your vacation and how much fun you had, reminisce about it. Just something small that you can like look forward to even after your vacation makes you feel less like, I'm like back to work and there's nothing to look forward to. So those are really good ways that you can re-enter.
In a perfect world, how would you design a vacation for a modern professional?
The number one thing I would say is design a vacation for yourself. I cannot tell you how to vacation. It's really a very personal thing. And I think so many of us, we'll scroll Instagram or TikTok and we'll see people going to like here or there and be like, oh, I want to do that too. I want to knock that off my bucket list. And so I think we get consumed with doing kind of vacations because we feel like we should, or everyone else is doing them. And the key to a good vacation really is looking inside of you. Like, first of all, reflecting on your past vacations is a great way to design a new vacation. Look at all your past vacations. Which ones worked for you? How did you feel when you came back from your last vacation? How did you feel when you came back from your vacation a month ago? How did you feel when you came back from your vacation 6 months ago? Which ones were the best? Which ones were the most restful? Which ones were the most fun? And start there. And then also think about your values. What do you value? Do you value hiking? Do you value being in nature? Do you value time alone? I'm introverted. If I go on a vacation with 6 people, sometimes it feels like I need a vacation for my vacation just because it's not the right vacation for me at that time. So you really have to look at your personality and your values and think about what's going to work for you, what's going to be the most restful for you, and try to do that.
That's amazing. So incredibly helpful. Jenica, thank you for joining us on Rest for the Wicked today. Your advice was so helpful. Lisa, do you feel like you have enough to be able to design your next vacation?
Like I said, I'm leaving tomorrow and I anticipated doing work, and this conversation has completely shifted my mindset on what I should be using this time for, and being able to commit it to that. Now, I've failed at the anticipatory part of it, but it also reminds me, I used to have this rule that I would not leave a vacation until the next vacation is booked, right?
Yeah.
To have that anticipatory, to have something to look forward to. And I love that, thinking about, if you know that you only have 5 more minutes to go or 5 more days to go, that work feels easier and there's a little bit more you can push yourself. So knowing that, I think I am really going to significantly redesign how I am taking, or not taking, I should say, vacations. I think this has been really helpful to bring that to the forefront. And I think, again, that like a lot of us would be like, I don't think we're doing it right, but not having the knowledge to be able to implement something that we know works for the body and the brain to keep up that respite.
Yeah, 100%. And Jenica, I wonder, before we sign off, if you could tell folks if there's anywhere that they can find you online, and where can they get your book?
Yeah, so my book is on Amazon called You Need a Better Vacation. And you can also get it, if you're in Vancouver, you can get it from Indigo Granville or the Book Warehouse on Main. And yeah, you can also find me on Instagram. I post some little vacation tips and tidbits there, and sometimes do some speaking things on there. So
great. Well, thank you again so much for joining us, and enjoy your next vacation. Rest for the Wicked was filmed on location in Calgary, Alberta by Philip Harrison and Centerpin Media. Pre- and post-production by Conscious Works and Adverb Communications. And of course,
you can connect with us through the Rest for the Wicked Instagram and TikTok accounts at Rest for the Wicked Pod. And make sure you subscribe to Rest for the Wicked wherever pods are cast.
I've never heard anyone say that before, so I wanted to...
I like it.
We'd love to hear about your experiences and struggles with different forms of rest. And if you have an idea for a future episode, let us know that too.
In the meantime, remember, get some rest so you can stay wicked.